Yo, what's happening, Raider Nation? It's your boy Soto here. You know what it is. Raiders versus the world, talking about the team that the world loves to hate, your Las Vegas Raiders. All right, we did it. We made it. We made it past all 7 rounds. And you know, this is one thing that I really caution people against. In all actuality, okay, very good draft, very okay. In all actuality, you really only expect the first 3 rounds to play any type of meaningful snaps. If a guy in the 4th round or a guy whatever further ends up playing some meaningful snaps in that next upcoming season, either that position group was very thin or you got extremely fortunate and that player was a lot more than what you had thought. Because if he was going to be a starter or a heavy contributor on your team, you would have, if you knew that, you would have drafted him sooner. How we doing, baby? How we doing out here, everyone? Look, the first 2 days of the draft is the impact players as far as your starters and guys that are playing heavy minutes. The other rounds are for traits and upside. Because look, if you hit on a guy late in the draft, that's amazing for 2 reasons. Not only do you get a really good player, but he's also really cheap, right? I heard it said something like that during one of the telecasts. I was always going back and forth between NFL and ESPN. I watched ESPN until I couldn't stand it anymore, and then I went back. All right, guys, dude, what is going on here? First off, is Mel Kiper Jr. on the Sanders family payroll or something? I saw him have a complete meltdown because of Shedeur Sanders' slide. And I think both sides were right. I do definitely feel like Shedeur Sanders is more talented than his draft position. Much more talented. But it's a lot more than just your talent in the NFL. You have to have the people selecting you feel comfortable with selecting you. And I think this is much more than a humbling moment or a stay in your lane moment for the Sanders family, because you can't convince me. There is no logic that can convince me that with the amount of jobs of the scouts, of the executives, of the GMs, of the coaching staff, of the head coach, with all those jobs on the line, all those hundreds of millions of dollars of salary on the line, they're not going to pick a player out of spite when the player can help them win games. You can't convince me of that. You can't convince me that all 32 teams colluded against Shedeur Sanders. What you also can't do, is say that Shedeur Sanders slipped as far as he did for no apparent reason. That there was no reason why he slipped. That seemed to me that was Mel Kiper Jr.'s stance. I don't know why he's slipping. He didn't do anything. It's ridiculous. And the rest of the panel was looking at him like, dude, why are you pressing this issue? You know as well as we do on this panel why he slipped, but we don't want to bury the kid with all the nonsense that him and his dad did over this last time. That, here's a little something. Never forget, Coach Prime, if I'm a young quarterback, ain't no way I'm going to Cleveland. I would pull an E9 Manning if possible. Think about that. Hashtag think about that. Hashtag truth. Really? This is the bravado, the arrogance that turned people off from Colorado football. What else we got here? Yeah. Couldn't imagine if I don't get drafted. Yeah. Then he gets drafted by Cleveland. The only team that gave him a shot was the one team that Coach Prime went at directly. And the weird thing is, I don't think he learned a lesson from it. I don't think he learned a lesson one goddamn bit. I don't have anything against Shedeur Sanders. Honestly, guys, like if you guys remember in the before we got Geno Smith, I'm like, dude, why are we hating on Shedeur? Right? Like I'm thinking to myself, you know, he has some skills. Is he a top tier talent? No, I wouldn't take him in the first round, but like, why are we hating on the kid? We're hating on the kid because of his last name. That's before we got Geno Smith. Then we didn't need him, so I stopped talking about him. So with all that talent, why did he slide? Well, I'll give you a little bit of a snip, if you don't mind.
Allow him to play for.
Whoa.
A couple teams that I won't allow him to play for.
Whoa.
This is my profession. I know what's behind the curtain. We ain't got to get back there for me to understand what's not prominent for my son. I'm not doing it. Ain't
And
no
if he
in the world.
doesn't listen to you?
Who? No, you must mean owners.
If you ain't trying to change the franchise or the culture, don't give me. So you should know history repeats itself over and over and over. And I've done it over and over and over. So it should be no question why an NFL franchise should pick me. You think I'm worried about what critics say or what people got to say? You know who my dad is? They hated on him too. So it's like it's almost normal. Without people hating, it's not normal for us. So we like diversity. We like everything that comes with the name. That's why we are who we are.
Well, I mean, I guess he really likes this. Look, here's some things that we have to take a step back. And I'm starting with this just to get to people to come on to the show and stuff. And it's a topic that we all like to talk about. And that's a big topic. Ultimately, you can't act the way that Deion Sanders acted in public, basically putting a gun to these franchises' heads saying, you're worthy, you're not worthy, right? You can't be above the process. You can't be your ego can't be put above the careers of so many other people, and people be comfortable with it. It's not a good practice. And maybe Deion learned his lesson. Maybe Shedeur learned his lesson. Maybe not. But I'll tell you one thing. Anyone who is arguing on the opposite end, or like, oh, Shedeur got shafted, this and that, that's just BS, he's going to be this, he's going to be that, isn't paying attention. Because it isn't about his ability. And that's what the panel on ESPN was trying to tell Mel Kiper Jr. Basically, it's like, Mel Kiper, the NFL is wrong. Okay, well, you know, it's not all about that. It's about the process coming up and, you know, how you made the teams feel and this and that. And, oh, well, yeah, but they're wrong. Okay. They're arguing a different point. It doesn't matter at this point if they're right or wrong. Yeah, well, they're wrong. Okay. The panel's saying, well, all that matters is what Shedeur learns from this. Well, yeah, but they're wrong. Okay. We'll see. Because look, there was another video that I wanted to bring up, but I didn't have enough time because I fell asleep in the middle of the rounds. Okay, just boring. But there was a video chronicling what the actual issue was, that Shedeur Sanders, if he was being interviewed by a team that presumably he didn't want to go to, he basically sandbagged the interview. He did really poorly. He acted like his time was being wasted. What does that tell a franchise? What does that tell a franchise if when things aren't going your way, you just quit? Because that's as big a part of the whole evaluation process as anything. Because they don't give you the optimal situation to go and interview. Let's say he went to the Browns and they were asking him, he's like, yeah, I don't know, man, whatever. He's acting like you really expect a team whose jobs are on the line getting these picks right to take a chance on a person who comes in having done nothing in the NFL and made you feel like you're wasting their time. You're going to want to take a chance on that. So when things aren't his way, he's just going to give up and just go through the motions. That's what he's showing. Is that not what he's showing? And I still have people that are jumping around defending this kid. This is the part that staggers me. What you can't say, what nobody can say, is that nothing happened behind the scenes that made teams sour on Shedeur Sanders. Because it wasn't about on the field stuff. Now, was this on the field stuff out of this world? I'll tell you one thing right now. Remember that old story? That old story that Deion Sanders loved to tell anybody who would listen about his draft day interviews? When a team said, hey, Deion, we want to interview. Oh, when are you picking? Oh, we're picking 10th. Oh, I'll be gone by then. And he blew him off. That doesn't sound so funny anymore, does it? That doesn't sound funny anymore. When you treat people like they don't matter, when the time comes for it to matter, they'll treat you the same way. Because what are you showing them? When things aren't your way, you're just going to go through the motions and be like, whatever. What's going to happen to Cleveland if they're going through a blowout loss? It's 42-3 in the fourth quarter. You know what? Put Shedeur in to get him some reps. What is he going to do? No, I don't feel like going in. I'm just going to go through the motions. I'm not going to look through, whatever. This is the stuff that people aren't realizing here. And to Mel Kiper Jr., I applaud you for what you've done for the draft day, for scouting. I'm who I am and what I do for fun on the side because of what you've done in the past. You opened the door to me for scouting, breaking down tape and all this stuff. You opened the door for me. But I'll tell you something right now. It's really easy for you, Mel Kiper Jr. It's really easy for you to go on TV and lash into all 32 or 31 franchises for not picking Shedeur Sanders when it's not your job on the line to get it right. When you're not a scout, when you're not a GM, when you're not a head coach, when you're not going to be fired from ESPN if your evaluation of a player is wrong. It's really easy to be up there and criticize others when you have no skin in the game whatsoever. There's my rant for the day, because that really pisses me off when people go up there and have no skin in the game. Now, I opened it up for this chat, but normally on the live chats, I don't let people who aren't subscribers to my channel chat or comment on my channel because you have no skin in the game. Same thing with Mel Kiper. It's easy to criticize other people. It's easy to crap on all these franchises for passing on Shedeur, and it makes you look bad for your evaluation when it doesn't matter to you. Next year, you're on to another group. Sam the man, you know why, Rich? You know why? Right? Space Beast? Well, that was awful, wasn't it? Wasn't that terrible today? That was awful. The way he cried. Rich Eisen was begging, Sam the man, Rich Eisen was begging teams to draft him too. You know why? Because I don't think it's all his fault. I think Deion Sanders put a lot of nonsense in Shedor's head. I'll tell you something right now. A lesson that Shedor should have learned by this whole process is if you're not an elite talent, you can't act like an elite talent. Deion Sanders, why we talk about top floor Hall of Fame, right? There's floors to the Hall of Fame. There's levels, and he's the top level. Yeah, he's the top level. So he can act like that because he had the talent. Shedor did it. And look what happened when he did. People don't want to take him, man. Unbelievable. Unbelievable that people are still sticking up for this guy. And the Browns have like 19 quarterbacks now. They're doing the spray and pray approach. I'll tell you something right now. If you have 5 quarterbacks, you don't have any. Dylan Gabriel, Shedor Sanders. Who else they got over there? Did they still got that kid from UCLA? What the hell's his name? Got 19 names. Joe Flacco. Who else did they sign? Kenny Pickett. They got all these dudes. What are they going to do? Like the 3 least crappiest quarterbacks are going to make the team? That's crazy to me, bro. That's crazy to me. I'll tell you something right now. It's absolutely bonkers to me. Because what we're looking at here is, what are we doing here to help make this team better? And ultimately, your backup quarterback is that big of a headache? Happy trails to you. What's going on with I got like a little tracer on my thing. Let me fix that, y'all. That should be better. Okay. All right. Let's get into day 3 picks. Y'all. I looked at Dante Thornton. I looked at him and I'm like, man, this dude reminds me of Nico Collins. So for those of you who didn't follow the draft as closely, we had 2 4th-round picks. And let's see here. Fourth-round pick, Dante Thornton, wide receiver, 6'5", 205 out of Tennessee. His pro comp is Nico Collins. That's my pro comp for him. Nico Collins. Dude, his size to speed and length combination is rare. Rare. To be 6'5", to run a 4.3 40, to have a 33+ inch arms, that combo, when he's on the field, he needs to be accounted for. He can't just be, oh, that's just a guy over there. So when you're picking, the first 2 days, you want those guys to start or play significant minutes. The last day of the draft, you're just picking elite traits and guys that you feel can be good contributors on special teams that can grow into something in a year or 2. That's why a lot of times when people downgrade teams' drafts, they take a look at it as a whole and not breaking it up into 2 days. Because if you break the Raiders draft up into not 2 days, but 2 sections, the first 2 days and the 3rd day, I think they had an excellent draft. Excellent draft. Despite being that as big as he is, Thornton has a really good release package. He's tough to jam on the line. And he's quicker in short spaces than his size would lend to. He's got great acceleration, man. He gets to top speed quick. And that top speed is elite. 4.3. You see him on tape, man. I'm going to do breakdowns of each one of our players in the future. I'll have highlights and breakdown reel of them too. But, man, I was watching some tape. Dude has nice long strides, and he just pulls away from people. And he's not just speed either. He tracks the ball well in the air. He's great on 50-50 balls. He's another really good red zone target at 6'5". It could jump out of the stadium. Great on 50-50 balls. He attacks the ball. He's a great blocker. Another thing that Pete Carroll is a must with his receivers. You got to be able to block. He's a great blocker. When he latches onto a DB, that's it. He sticks to him. Now, why is he available in the 4th round if he's so amazing, right? Well, the reason why he's available so late in the draft is because his route tree is extremely limited. He's basically a verticals guy or a comeback guy. He needs to learn how to run routes. This is something that very similar to what I said about Jalen Milroe, about how Alabama did him a disservice, right? That's what I said. I said, dude, they didn't develop him as a quarterback because they just wanted him to do what he was good at, and they needed to win games, and they prioritized that over developing him as a quarterback. Same thing with Thornton. You know what, man? Just go out there and do what you do. Do what you do best, and we'll figure it out from there. He didn't develop any type of route tree with Tennessee. So he's definitely a developmental player, but he can play on special teams. One of the things you take a look at too is the fact that Thornton, he's got pretty limited production for his elite traits. Ultimately, you have to take a look at something here. How was he used? Was he used mainly as a decoy? Because I see his tape, he's running almost exclusively verticals or comebacks. So is he just occupying space, occupying defenders for the rest of the offense to function? Who knows? But ultimately, we got ourselves an athletic freak in the 4th round. I don't know that anybody else in this draft had this combination of size, speed, length, especially with as good a blocker as he is in the wide receiver position. All right. I'm not going to freaking blow this guy anymore. A guy that I talked about yesterday that I was super excited I was really excited about 3 different draftees. I was super excited about Austin Jeanty. I was super excited about Charles Grant. There's another guy I talked about. I don't know if you guys watched the videos, but I did talk about him and that he would be a great pickup in the 3rd-ish round, 3rd-ish, 4th-ish round. Another guy that I talked about just last night, if you guys were watching, was Tonka Hemingway. One thing, too, what you're looking at here is we are not looking for graders or like gap pluggers. You know what I'm saying? That's not what we're looking for. Guys who can get into the backfield and create havoc. Guys, if you guys have been watching for any length of time, have you guys watched some of my other videos? What did I say? How did I say this defense was going to run? The motor of this defense is the defensive line, creating havoc in the backfield, either tackle for loss or sacks. You knife into the backfield, guess what? You got offensive linemen kind of out of position, and guess what? The linebackers flow and make the tackle. You put pressure early on the quarterback, guess what happens? You can play a little bit tighter coverage because you know you're not going to have to play that tight coverage for long. Guess what? We have big, long, fast DBs. This all makes sense. It all fits together. Tonka Hemingway is part of that. He played up and down the line. He can play end. He can play inside. Explosive first step. When I talk about a first step, this guy is consistently living in the opponent's backfield. He's a constant disruption behind the line of scrimmage. Even if he doesn't make the tackle, he definitely makes the running back adjust, and he's a problem for the offensive line because he's constantly in the backfield. Versatility, can play up and down the line. He's got active hands. It helps him to disengage from blocks, and he beats blocks pretty consistently. Guys don't latch onto him. He's got really violent hands to be able to get people off of him. Really tough and really durable, man. Guy, he didn't miss a game in 4 years. Strong motor, good pursuit skills, constantly getting tackles from behind. One thing is he does lack elite size. He's 6'3", 284. You can put a little bit of bulk on him, but you know what? I think he's okay for the modern D tackles, the pass rushing D tackles. He does need to improve a little bit on his tackling technique, and wrap up guys a little bit more. I think he likes to bowl guys over a little bit too much, go for the hit stick instead of wrapping up. I think we'll clean that up pretty easily. He's got good initial burst, but I think he can rely on that a little bit too much. He needs to get like a counter move off of his burst, maybe a spin move or a rip or a push pull, something like that. Something that can help him accompany his initial quick burst. If he can do that, he's going to be a really good tool for us. Definitely. One thing that we're looking at here with our picks is these guys are athletes. These guys are all super athletic. We got tougher and we got more athletic in this draft. That's something that I don't think anyone can deny. What was Jeremiah Rose? What was the worst draft pick in rounds 1 through 4? I would probably say Caleb Rogers was a little bit of a reach for me. I would say Caleb Rogers was a little bit of a reach for me. I think everyone else was pretty solid where they got selected. I think we could have gotten Caleb Rogers a little bit later in the draft. I think Charles Grant was a guy that I was pleasantly surprised that he was still there late in the third. But I think Caleb Rogers may be a little bit of a. We're going to get to all of these guys. We're going to get to all of them. But I'm going to start with the day 3 guys. Thanks for the comment. Good point, Steve. Tonka has the same frame as Kalijah Kancey, who the Bucks got. And he's a pretty good player. Ask Aiden O'Connell. Okay. Next. Oh, and my comp for Tonka Hemingway is Danico Autry. A smaller, he wasn't quite as hulking, but he played on the interior and defense, a guy that played for the Raiders for a while. Okay, next pick. First pick of the 6th round. Your Las Vegas Raiders went with J.J. Pegues. I looked it up and it said Pegues. So we're going to go with Pegues. 6'2", 309 out of South Carolina. My pro comp for him is Bilal Nichols. Who remember Bilal Nichols? He's almost the exact same size as Bilal Nichols, who played pretty well for us a few years ago. Let me know if this sounds familiar. A little bit undersized defensive lineman, but elite quickness, elite first step. Sound familiar? Yeah, it sounds familiar to me too. He has great change of direction ability. So when plays cut away from him, he's really quick at getting back on track and getting back on the ball carrier. Versatile player. He's played up and down the line. Again, another guy that's versatile, right? He's really good at popping off a lineman. Linemen try to engage with him, and he pops right off. Again, very similar to Tonka Hemingway. J.J. Pegues had 2 rushing touchdowns last year. Did you know that? He played, I think, quarterback in high school. So this may be a guy that can be kind of like a Richard from the Ravens, where he's a bigger fullback. Also, maybe even carry the ball every once in a while. One thing about Pegues, because he's a little bit shorter and he wants to get up a little bit tall, he can get a little bit too upright at times. And when he gets caught, he gets pushed back pretty consistently. He initially is more of a reactor than an anticipator when it comes to play not design, but identification. We identify plays and stuff like recognitions, I should say. He doesn't have great length, but I think his hand strength and his overall upper body strength really makes up for that. Just because he's hard to keep a hold of, man. He's like a greased pig. Offensive linemen try to block him, and he just slides right off of them. This is not a huge deal for me. He's going to be 24 as a rookie. I don't really care about that. That's not a big deal to me. But J.J. Pegues was our first pick in the third round, or excuse me, the sixth round. Okay. This is where it gets a little bit funky. I know that usually my people get out of here, Pegues. What's the matter with you? Usually the loyal subscribers and followers of Raiders versus the World like it a little funky. But now we got a little bit funky here. Tommy Mellott out of Montana State was their starting quarterback. He was drafted as a wide receiver, 6 foot, 210. Pro comp for me is Julian Edelman, another college quarterback who turned wide receiver from Kent State. Tommy Mellott is 2 inches taller, about 20 pounds heavier, and like 0.2 of a second faster. He ran a 4.3 40 as well. Super athletic. I don't know a ton about this kid, so I did some research once he was drafted. 4.3 40. I don't care where you played, Montana State, on Mars, or at USC. 4.3 is a 4.3. He made Bruce Feldman's freak list. That's not easy to do. In college, he had over almost 2,500 career rushing yards and 29 rushing touchdowns as a quarterback. He's not just straight line speed. He's an ankle breaker in the open field. He's tough to bring down. He's very elusive. He runs with the mentality of a running back. The first guy rarely brings him down. One of the things about having Tommy Mellott go to wide receiver is, as a former quarterback, he has a very high understanding of offenses. We saw that with Julian Edelman, how he quickly connected with Tom Brady. We saw that with a tight end that would remain nameless in Kansas City, how when he connected to Patrick Mahomes. These former quarterbacks who turn pass catchers have a different level of understanding about how offenses work and how they can play within that offense. This is I'm not saying he's going to be a superstar or anything like that, but it's something to look forward to, because look, from my understanding, he had never played receiver a day in his life. He was a quarterback, a running quarterback, not a receiver. The Raiders look at him as a receiver. For right now, he can be a special teams guy because he's fast and he's tough and he understands football, high football IQ, until he learns how to run routes. Once he learns how to run routes, this could be a little bit of a problem. A little bit of a problem for defenses, because this kid doesn't look like much, but when he has the ball in his hands, the kid is, dare I say, electric? He's electric. Maybe. Ed Hunson, we had just talked about the first 10 minutes or so was on Shador. Just jumped in on Shador. Dion is acting like LeVar Ball. When Neon came out, he was great. When you got that kind of talent, you can talk all the bleep you want and still get paid. That's exactly what I said. That's a lesson that should have been learned by the Sanders family. You can't act prime time if your talent is not prime time. It's just the way it is. Rob Lockhart, I would have rolled the dice on Shedeur that late in the draft, or even Curtis Rourke and his messed up ACL. Well, here's the issue. Here's the issue with quarterbacks that aren't mobile. They're not very productive in a Chip Kelly offense. You need to have a quarterback that can move. Speaking of quarterbacks that can move, this is a expert segue by me. Get out of here, Tommy Mellott. We're done with you. Our second or third of 3 sixth-round picks, Cam Miller, quarterback out of North Dakota State. This is another guy that I talked about last night. That was a possible target at quarterback, if you guys were watching. My pro comp for Cam Miller is Bo Nix. 6'1", 210, not quite as tall, not quite as big, but the kid is a baller, man. He was a stud in the FCS, and he did play. If you want to say, oh, he didn't play anybody, they didn't play anybody. Okay, well, let's see. He played Colorado at Colorado, went 18-22. That's 81.8% completion percentage, 277 yards and touchdown. Oh, by the way, he ran 16 times for 81 yards and 2 more touchdowns. So that's not just him himself playing against an FBS school, right? That's him and his fellow FCS teammates playing against an FBS team, and this is the type of stats he had. So the one time that he played against top-tier talent, guess what happened? Pretty good. 350 all-purpose yards, 3 touchdowns. I'm not saying he's going to be this guy every week in the NFL, but if you need somebody to run a Chip Kelly offense, there are worse guys out there, like Shedeur Sanders or Rourke. Yeah, praise Jesus. Yeah, go sign Nick Nash. Like, how is Nick Nash not drafted? With Cam Miller, do you think Brady chose him? I think Brady was on board with it. I don't think that he chose him, but I think that Brady does really value the work ethic in a player. Because look, Cam Miller, I'm going to be honest with you, I haven't seen any Cam Miller tape. I saw a couple of highlights reels that I found after he got drafted, and I was kind of doing some quick homework on him. But all the scouts I looked at four different areas for info on Cam Miller, and everyone said the same thing. The pluses were the same. Elite level processing. He decodes coverages pre-snap, knows where to go with the ball. He has good understanding of zone coverages and where to go with the ball. Throws with good anticipation in between the seams where you want to attack in the NFL. In between the hashes, he hits receivers in stride. High-end pocket awareness. He's tough to bring down. When he does move around in the pocket, he moves around with the intent to beat you downfield. Great leadership traits. Captain of a 2-time FCS division national champions. Another one too is I saw this a couple of times. He has elite level decision making, specifically in situational football moments. We're not going to get these moments where the quarterback doesn't know what to do with the ball. He doesn't understand the clock, game management, anything. He understands how everything works. He gives you the opportunity to get extra possessions and extra scores by how he manipulates the game and the clock. He's really accurate with the ball. Now, if you want to pick on the guy as far as why he's still available, he went to an FCS school, there's one, and he doesn't have an elite arm. His arm is not, a crazy strong rocket arm. If you're like a Carson Wentz arm coming out of North Dakota State, or if you're the size with the arm of Trey Lance, out of North Dakota, you get picked up high. He's a little bit smaller. His arm isn't quite as strong, but everything else is well above the other two. One thing that he needs to work on, and this is not he's not a unique snowflake when it comes to this as far as young quarterbacks. He sticks on his primary read a little bit too long. Most young quarterbacks do because they're usually playing with 5-star recruits at receiver who can get open on anybody. That's not how it happens in the NFL normally. Ed Hudson, who did you watch? Who did you watch in person? Let me know. All right. Last pick. One thing about this next guy, I honestly didn't know how to think about this guy because he reminds me of Bobby Boucher from The Waterboy. Because this dude is just aggressive and violent, and he doesn't look it. You know, it's pretty funny when I was like thinking about it, like, man, who does this guy remind me of? Who does he play like? And I'm thinking to myself, he's the water boy. He's Bobby Boucher. Look, let me put him up here real quick. I think that's how you spell it. Let me see if I can, before I put it up there, I want to make sure I spell it right. Because it would be a travesty if I didn't spell it correctly. Yeah, I spelled it right. Okay. Because I'll tell you something right now. This kid can be a steal that we got in the 7th round. Cody Lindenberg, linebacker out of Minnesota, 6'2", 236. Kid's a lot better athlete than you might think. He ran a 4.7 40, but that's not the end-all be-all of it. He actually was clocked. His play speed was clocked at almost 20 miles an hour during a play. Now, I'm not a mathematician, but 20 miles an hour is a little bit faster than 4.7 40. Maybe just not a sprinter. You know, he can't get out of a sprinter stance as well. But I'll tell you something right now. If you can run 19.5 miles an hour, you run a whole lot faster than 4.7. Cody Lindenberg at the linebacker spot, he is top shelf processing information, processing what he sees, right? He sees it, he hits it. He puts himself and his teammates in the right position to make plays. Above all else, size, speed, tackling ability, all that stuff, above everything else. If you're going to be a middle linebacker in the NFL, the number one thing you need to be able to do is put yourself and your teammates in the right position. Bottom line, I don't care who you're talking about. I don't care how good of elite physical traits you have. Look at Devin White. Devin White has infinitely better physical traits than other linebackers. But other linebackers played more and had a better career so far because up here, they're processing information a whole lot better. That's the first job of a middle linebacker, is to make sure everyone is in the right place and everyone knows what they're doing. Everyone is in the right spot to make the play. The play speed is way faster. He was clocked at 19.5 miles an hour. Now, he was clocked at 4.7. He was clocked at 4.62. Who knows? But the play speed is much better than that. One thing about him, too, is he's not abnormally huge. 6'2", 235. He's a big kid, But as for a linebacker, he's not 6'3", 6'4". But what he does have is violent hands. He stacks and sheds those offensive linemen like a stud. He's tough to block because he can stack and push out a lineman and still keep his eye and vision on the ball carrier. Get off the block and make the play. Now, normally with people, one of their strengths is also part of their weakness too, right? Well, this kid is such an animal that he actually runs into blockers a lot because he wants to stack and shut them instead of like not getting blocked in the first place. We can work on that. He can get a little more aggressive at times. With the over-aggression, basically what it does is it kicks him out of position to make the play, and he has to go to pursuit. We can work on that too. Man coverage is still a little bit of a work in progress. He's much better in zone where he can see what he's attacking. Man, it's a little bit, his straight line speed is not bad. His change of direction is a little bit dicey. So that's Cody Lindenberg, linebacker out of Minnesota. His pro comp is Bobby Boucher, the water boy. Holla at you. All right, guys. Let's go ahead and take a little bit of a recap of the first couple of days. That was day 3. Give me a second here. Thomas Wolf, Jay Madden was adamant about game day speed. Totally true. Yeah, man. If you run almost 20 miles an hour, that's plenty fast as a linebacker. I'll tell you something right now. It's plenty fast as a linebacker. Okay, let's take a peek into the first round because ultimately there was a lot of talk about who we were going to select. In my mind, and you can roll tape all of my different mock drafts and things that I said we should do. I said Mason Graham, Ashton, Jeanty, Armand Membou. Those are my 3 names. Who ended up going 5, 6, 7? Mason Graham, Ashton, Jeanty, Armand Membou. I'm not patting myself on the back because you can go back and you can take a look yourself. It is what it is. But first pick, number 6 overall, Ashton Jeanty, running back. 5'9", 215 out of Boise State. My pro comp for him is Alvin Kamara. It was close. It was LaDainian Tomlinson / Alvin Kamara for me. He also has a little bit of, I didn't want to say, I'm not even going to say his name. Emmitt Smith. I'm not even going to say it. But just his size and his ability to bounce off of tackles and his ability to stay balanced. And I'll tell you something right now, Ashton Jeanty is a whole lot better receiver out of the backfield than Emmitt Smith was when he came out of Florida. He got better as time went on. But out of the package, like nice and new, Ashton Jeanty's a better receiver right now. Which, look, everyone wants to hate on Ashton Jeanty. Oh, well, he's just a runner. He's this and that. No. Last season, Boise State ran him so he can get the record. Yeah, he ran for like 2,600 yards last season. But the season before, he had almost 600 yards receiving, which led all running backs in the FBS. So you tell me, what can't he do? I'll tell you what he can do. He can have great balance. Contact balance is through the roof. The first guy rarely brings him to the ground. He had 2,600 yards last season. Guess what? 1,900 of those yards were after contact. So you can't say that he had this great offensive line he was running behind. No. He was running behind a shoddy offensive line. 1,900 yards after contact. That's ridiculous. His long speed is above average. It's good. You don't see him get caught from behind a lot. But he broke off. He had more 50-yard runs than anyone else in the nation. You tell me that he's not fast enough? Okay. We'll go ahead and go with you then. Got great hands, nice soft hands as a receiver. Doesn't shy away from contact when he needs to. Now, don't get me wrong. He's not a Lindenberg and just goes after contact. He doesn't want to get hit. But if it's going to happen, he's the one that delivers the hit. One cut vision, boom, gone. inside zone, outside zone, gap scheme, doesn't matter. You can play, he can play any scheme and be successful. If there's one thing that he needs to work on, he even said so himself in his press conference. I don't know if you guys saw that. I did a reaction video to his press conference. Actually, two of them. One to his press conference and one to like the post-draft interview. And in the post-draft interview, he was asked what does he need to work on, and his answer was amazing. First, he said everything. I need to work on I need to be better at everything, number one. But he picked one thing. He said pass protection, which I agree with. He needs to get better at pass protection because when he's delivering the hit, he's the man. But when he's receiving the hit and pass protection, he can get a little funky. But ultimately, it was a no-brainer at 6. It's a stark difference. I made a short that I don't know if you guys saw, but what a difference a year makes. Tom Telesco and AP take over. What's the first thing they say? We want to be bullish. We want to run the commitment to running the football. And then they let their right tackle walk, Jermaine Illuminor, and they let their running back walk because he wanted too much money. And then you don't spend all of your cap. What? You're arguing with your running back over money, but then you don't spend the money that you have. Okay. But you have a commitment to the run. Okay. You let a tackle go, but you don't really fill him with anybody. Okay. Then cut to this season. Commitment to the running game. You trade back a couple times in the 3rd round or in the 2nd round to pick up more picks. And with those 2 picks, you pick up 2 super athletic, versatile linemen who are going to be probably starters for you in a year or 2. That's a commitment to the run. And you pick the head and shoulders best running back in the draft class of a generationally good running back draft class. You see what I'm talking about? When the words match the actions. Maybe I don't know. Maybe, am I crazy? Am I nuts? Carter Runyon. Nice. Look, there's some of these. We're going to see a lot of people that are going to get signed to drafts. And don't sleep on these guys, man. Because there was a lot of great talent available. Great talent. If you want to talk about a player that has just elite traits written all over him, Carter Runyon is 6'6", a tight end 6'6", athletic, big, strong hands. He's not super fast, but he's quick in short space. So he can get open early. You don't need a tight end to run a fucking a 15-yard comeback. If your tight end is running that route, your offense is doo-doo. Tell you that right now. For Carter Runyon as a UDFA, not bad with that. Big kid. Okay, 2nd round. We traded back. I am firmly in the belief that we wanted Jaden Higgins. That's who I thought that we wanted. Jaden Higgins got picked. Okay, let's move back a little bit because we pretty much got Jaden Higgins a few rounds later in Dante Thornton. He's pretty much the same guy. Maybe not as nuanced and skilled in his route running, but if we clean that up, he's the same player. So, okay, Jaden Higgins is gone. That's who we really wanted in the second round. Let's just move back. We move back. And I'm thinking we moved back and we wanted Will Johnson. Will Johnson didn't get there. Will Johnson got picked a couple picks before us. So we're like, you know what? Let's move back again. Why do I say Will Johnson? Because Darien Porter, we picked Darien Porter, who's physically a little bit bigger, but pretty much the same guy. Probably a little bit faster too. But that's what we were looking for. That's the type, the body type we were looking for. And that was Will Johnson. Will Johnson gets picked. Let's just move back again. Pick up another couple picks. When we did pick, Jack Bech, wide receiver out of TCU. Former tight end, slimmed down a little bit. He's a receiver. My pro comp for Jack Bech is Puka Nacua. And if you take a look at their physicals, they are almost identical, except that Jack Bech runs a what? What's his 40 time? Was it like a 4? Actually, you know what? The 40 times are about the same. They're not super fast. He's not a burner, but he gets open. He's more of a power slot guy. One of those, like a big slot receiver who can bully the smaller nickels. He played tight end. He's used to running those dig routes, those quick outs, those seam routes. That's what tight ends run, right? He's got really good quickness for a guy his size, man. Footwork, release package. He's really good. He's hard to jam at the line of scrimmage. He's got a playmaker mentality. Doesn't go down on first contact. It takes multiple guys to bring him down to the ground. His long speed, like I said, like Puka Nacua, his long speed is okay. It's not anything to write home about, but he's not slow. The one thing with him is his hands. He catches everything. If something's able to be caught, he's going to catch it. He had one drop last season. One. He needs some work on some of his outside routes, some of his outside breaking routes. But you know what? There's no perfect prospect. That's the routes where you have to use your speed into a change of direction. That's where he's going to have a little bit of trouble. The speed outs, the deep comebacks, stuff like that, where you have to push a guy off with your speed and come back quickly, change of direction. That's going to be a little bit more difficult for him. The quicker change of, over the middle type stuff, the slants, the quick slants, the dig route, stuff like that. Yeah, he's going to be a lot better at that. But, did I fail to mention that he's like basically another offensive lineman? He was a tight end. He can block really well. Tell me how none of this sounds like Puka Nacua. All this sounds like Puka Nacua to me. Let's see what we got going here. Ed Hudson, great hands, a big Hunter Renfrow. Yeah, basically he's a bigger Hunter Renfrow that can block. Okay, next pick. Out of here. Jack Bech. We already talked about you. Darien Porter, corner, Iowa State. My pro comp for Darien Porter is Tariq Woolen. Tariq Woolen was taken in the 5th round. He was a fast, long-armed, low on experience corner who ended up being a stud. Darien Porter was actually a receiver going into Iowa State. Played special teams his first couple seasons. They said, you know what, we're going to change over to corner. This was his only year really playing corner. Played about, 7, 8 games, something like that, but he flashed. Dude has 33-inch arms, bro. What is that? He's 6'3", damn near 200 pounds. Got elite speed, runs a 4.3, legit 4.3. He was a track athlete, track star in high school. Elite recovery speed, elite acceleration. excels in zone coverage where he can break on receivers and break on the ball with his long arms. He's a problem. He's his receiver background. He gives them that little bit of an edge in those 50-50 balls with his height, his jumping ability, and his length. Also, he understands offenses and route combinations, being a former wide receiver. He doesn't have much experience at corner, but Pete Carroll just finds ways to get these guys and shine them up and make them a lot better than people thought. One thing he's gonna have to learn how to get off of blocks on the outside from receivers. He's gonna have to, he lacks a little bit of anticipation because he hasn't played the position long enough, but with time, I think he'll get much better than that. All right, next up. This is probably my reach of the draft for the Raiders, but it's not to say he's a bad player. Caleb Rogers, guard, Texas Tech, 6'5", about 312. Right pro comp for him is Nick Saldiveri. Nick Saldiveri is a tackle who was also a guy that moved around up and down the line. He plays for the Saints. Good backup guy, battle-tested, dude. Got over 4,000 snaps in college. He started 55 consecutive games at Texas Tech. All on the line. Guard, tackle, left side, right side. Good lateral movement. He has good recognition of like stunts and twists and games that defensive linemen like to play. Really heavy hands, solid punch. When he locks onto a guy, that's it. It's over. Nice vision, awareness. He knows good spatial awareness for himself as an offensive lineman. Big issue with him is his arms. Like 32.5-inch arms. That's why he's going to get kicked inside to a guard, which is fine. He's a mauler. He's got a bad attitude, which I like. You need to have a freaking bully mentality if you're going to be, especially on the interior of the offensive line. He struggles. The bigger guys don't give him problems. What gives him problems are like the smaller, quicker ends, edges, or linebackers. Those guys give him problems. But he's not going to see a lot of that on the interior. That's mostly at the tackle position. On the interior, he's not going to see that very much. He gets high in his stance a little bit, which is not a huge deal because we can work on that. But sometimes when he's not completely comfortable and in front of his defender, he tends to get straight up and he gets off balance because of it. Things that would definitely get worked on. These are nobody's a perfect prospect. Well, maybe Ashton Jeanty. And that's Caleb Rogers. I think we would have gotten Caleb Rogers a little bit later in the draft, but what do I know? What are we saying here? All righty. The last pick of day 2 is a guy that I was really hoping that the Raiders were able to get. I did have my reservations on if we were able to get him because of how early we picked in the 3rd round, and we only had at the time 1 3rd-round pick. I'm thinking, I don't know if they're going to spend their 3rd-round pick on a developmental guy, even though he has a ceiling that's through the roof. Like, his ceiling is, well, we'll see in a second, but his ceiling is really high. He only played 2 years of high school football. He was a wrestler before that, and he was wrestling at 240 pounds. So he goes to William and Mary, gets bulkier, learns the position. He's 6'5", about 310 right now. He's going to add some more bulk, but he's plenty strong enough. He's light on his feet and got powerful lower body, that wrestling background, good with his hands, good leverage. No one's going to outfight him with his arms. He's got above average lateral quickness. He has some awareness of lateral ability when it comes to being a tackle. He gets across the defenders' faces. His footwork is great. That's another part of the wrestling background, how they have to do those drills, shooting drills of footwork. His footwork is really good. He goes to the second level and just wipes out. I've seen him just bury linebackers and safeties. It's sad to watch sometimes. Those guys are AOG, another occupational guy. That's what they were calling them today on the broadcast. Playing against a guy that's going to have a different occupation when he gets older. Just smacking those guys. Now, it's going to be a big jump in competition from William & Mary to the NFL. But when he was at the Senior Bowl, your boy, Charles Grant, did really well. Did really well for himself. My pro comp for Charles Grant, well, Charles Grant is 6'5", 310 out of William & Mary. What did I do with that? Let me fix that real quick. I'm a stickler for that. All right, here we go. Fixed it. Out of William & Mary, my pro comp is D'Brickashaw Ferguson. Now, I understand that D'Brickashaw Ferguson was a first round. I think it was like number 4 overall pick. I get that. And Charles Grant is not that. But you take a look at the fact that D'Brickashaw Ferguson was a little bit lighter and smaller and needed to kind of grow into that tackle body. Once he did, he became one of the better offensive tackles in the NFL. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that Charles Grant can become is going to be one of the better tackles in the NFL, but he's got the traits. He's got the height. He has the frame to put on mass. He's got the footwork. He needs the technique, but he's got the strength and the movement skills to do it. This is around the right spot where we should have taken Charles Grant in the late. That's why I was kind of like, I don't know if he would have lasted until our 4th round pick, because as a supplemental 3rd round pick, that's around where you want to get a guy with this kind of upside. All right, guys, that is our draft class. Let's see what you guys have for me here. Safe Belayer, 4'7", can run 19.5 miles per hour, just not within the first 20 yards. Not necessarily. I think giving him a running head start, he can get up to that speed a lot quicker. Chenzo, solid picks for developmental players that could start down the road. We still need another day 1 starter at O-line, and we have plenty of time for that. We have plenty of time for that, because there's going to be a lot of guys that get cut that are going to want to sign for not that much money. Keith Pardini, Raiders draft grades, day 1, A+, day 2, A, day 3, I give him a solid B. Jake Long, watch Cam Miller highlights, didn't look bad. Bech and Thornton are going to be dope for the silver and black. They each come. Bech and Thornton each come with their pluses and their role on this team. Jack Bech is going to go in there and stick his nose in there. He's going to be that tough. He's going to be that Hunter Renfrow type, just a little bit bigger, a little bit more sturdy. He's not 5'10", 180, you know. He's 6'2", 210, 215. And he can block. Ron, I love the freaking it just says Ron. My name is, that's it. Bam. You should know. Remember that Tom Brady is helping pick these quarterbacks and went in the 6th round too. How did that turn out, guys? It turned out pretty good. Now, no one's got the illusion that Cam Miller is going to be Tom Brady, but we just don't know. They took some nice swings. Let's hope they hit the meat of the bat. Look, here's the thing. I said it earlier in the podcast. I don't know how many of you guys were here, but your first 2 days of the draft, that's when you really look at who the player is now, right? Once you get towards the later part of the third round, like in your comp picks, like because the last 2 picks for the Raiders, they were comp picks in the third round. Those are basically third round plus guys. But the first 3 rounds of guys, you want those guys to be ready to contribute right now and start on your team. After that, you just want guys that have elite traits and can turn into something. Because that's when you want to get the guys at the premium. What are the premium positions? What have I talked about? The big 5 positions. Now, how do I get these positions? These are the top 5 paid positions in the NFL by average annual salary. And what are they? Quarterback, tackle, edge rusher, receiver, corner. Those are the big 5. What do we get in the third day of this draft? Let's take a peek. Receiver, D tackle, receiver, quarterback. So we're taking these guys, and plus, if you take a look at the 2 offensive linemen that we got in with basically comp picks from the third round, dude, if you hit on 1 or 2 of these guys, you're golden. Those are guys you don't have to replace for another 5-10 years. Does this mean AOC is a goner? I don't know. I don't know necessarily if he's a goner. I don't think he fits Chip Kelly's offense. I think to be able to run Chip Kelly's offense effectively, you have to be able to run the ball or be able to at least attack with the run. You don't have to necessarily run the plays, this RPO, so you can pull the ball back and throw it, but you have to be able to attack with the run and keep the defense honest. If Aiden O'Connell runs an RPO play, the linebacker is just going to tee off on him. He knows he's not going to freaking run. He knows he's going to pass the ball. But I don't know. If Cam Miller shows he can come in here and play, we really don't know what we have with Carter Bradley. But if those guys are shown to be guys that can come in here and be serviceable, maybe he is going to be gone. Who knows? All right, guys. That's it for me today. I appreciate you guys. It was a long draft weekend, and I did a lot of live shows this weekend. But I'm going to tell you something right now, man. Everyone, please make sure, like, comment, and subscribe. It's a great way to support this channel. It's absolutely free to subscribe, and it's the bare minimum you can do to support this channel besides doing absolutely nothing and just watching the video. Guys, we're a community. I want to build a community here. It's not just a YouTube channel, okay? This is a community where Raider Nation come together and talk and disagree and fight and laugh and talk about players and games and all this stuff, and that's all great. Because once we leave here, everybody's against us because it's Raiders versus the world, and that's just like we like it. All right, guys, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you guys. Till next time, everybody. Peace.